Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Reverence for Rêverie. I'm Marrissa, and as always, I am honored that you're here with me in this space where our reflection meets resonance. Today's conversation is one that I've been feeling very deeply. It's been humming in the background of the shifts that I've been encountering in my own life, and at this point, its resonance is reverberating in my bones. It's one that feels essential, especially within the collective climate that we are currently navigating together. And it's about leadership, but not the kind of leadership we were taught to chase, not the leadership that's built on survival or performing or proving. Today, we're talking about the quiet, powerful shift into something deeper, soul-led leadership. Leadership that doesn't arise from hustle or hierarchy, but instead from emotional sovereignty, creativity, and deep inner resonance. Most of us, myself included, were conditioned in a system where leadership meant survival. We were taught to lead from the mind, strategy, competition, efficiency, achievement, all of those kinds of things. And we were taught that leadership meant being strong, certain, always in control. We learned to perform strength even when our hearts were breaking inside. This survival-driven leadership is built on a simple but painful equation. I must succeed or I will not survive. I must stay ahead or I will be left behind. I must know everything or I will be unworthy. And maybe that served a purpose for a time. Maybe it got us through some difficult seasons. But chances are, if you're here with me today, I imagine that you felt the hollowness of it all too. The way that the endless striving, the relentless self-correcting, the over-functioning, it starts to eat away at the soul. Like the way the armor begins to feel heavier than the vulnerability that it was meant to protect in the first place. In so many ways, the old model of leadership mirrors the old model of the universe, a mechanistic, survivalist world where everything competes for space and where scarcity is assumed. But if you zoom out and into the quantum world, you find something else entirely. At the most fundamental level, reality is relational. Fields overlap, particles entangle, time collapses, and possibility expands. The same is true for leadership. We are no longer called to dominate. We are called to participate. And in the state of distress that we're living in, I believe we're being called to become more regenerative and sustainable. And we can only do that by becoming still enough to listen to the whispers leading the way. At some point, and maybe it's happening to you right now, the old strategies just stop working. Success doesn't soothe the ache. Recognition doesn't fill the emptiness. And being good enough for others does not make you end up feeling whole inside. And that is absolutely not a failure. That is the beginning of awakening. It is the soul whispering, there is another way, a truer way. In psychoanalysis, we understand that much of what drives us operates unconsciously. It's like we live out these contracts that we don't even know that we've signed, agreements that are forged early in life about how we must behave in order to be loved, safe, and accepted. And maybe the contract says, be perfect, or you'll be abandoned. Be strong, or you'll be irrelevant. Stay small, or you will not be safe. These contracts shape the leaders that we become until we begin to question them. The cracks in the old foundation are not signs of your weakness. They are the invitations. Invitations into a new kind of leadership, one that begins not with striving, but with surrender, not with control, but with connection. And if you're listening and you're thinking, but I'm not a leader, I want you to know you absolutely, unequivocally are. And not because of a title, not because of accolades or followers, but because leadership begins in all of the unseen spaces, in the way you meet yourself each morning, in the way you choose presence over reaction, in the way that you soften where you once hardened. Self-leadership is sacred. It is the soil from which all other leadership grows. And when you tend to your inner world with reverence, you become a quiet revolution. You shift the atmosphere simply by being. You invite others not by force, but by frequency to remember who they are too. Leadership isn't something that you claim. It's something you embody. It hums through you whenever you choose soul over survival, resonance over reaction, love over fear. And so I'm going to say it again. You are already leading, and the world feels it. The new foundation won't be built from survival. It's built from soul. It's built from courageous willingness to be fully yourself, even when it's messy, even when it's uncertain, especially when it's messy and uncertain. This new leadership honors a different set of values. And while there are many potential values, and each individual will certainly have their own, for the purposes of this conversation, I've come up with 3 that I'll share that I believe are foundational to a new paradigm of leadership. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. The first is emotional sovereignty. And this is the ability to hold your own emotional landscape with tenderness and with clarity. Of course, this takes work, and it's hard work. It allows you to respond rather than just react, to recognize that your feelings are sacred messengers, not problems to fix, but doorways to deeper knowing. And it's in this emotional arena that you begin to expand in both directions. And this expansion correlates directly to your capacity to hold more in leadership, in success, and in life in general. The next value is creativity over control. This is leading from inspiration instead of fear, instead of scarcity. Trusting that solutions emerge when we create the conditions for imagination to thrive. You know, sometimes the best breakthroughs don't happen in the war rooms. They happen in stillness, in dream time, in those liminal spaces where the soul speaks. I mean, come on, guys. Like, have you ever been in the shower and gotten your very best ideas where you're absolutely not able to do anything about it? I know I have. It happens all the time, literally. And then finally, the third and final one for now is resonance over hustle. This is moving at the speed of meaning and intuition, not urgency. It is choosing aligned action over frantic motion. We value process over production first every single time. And in a quantum universe, everything is understood as frequency. Leadership isn't then about pushing harder. It's about tuning yourself to the resonance of what you are here to create, and then letting that vibration ripple outward from you and into the world. You don't lead by force, you lead by frequency, by becoming the tuning fork that reminds others of their own deeper song. This kind of leadership doesn't burn you out. It nourishes you because it is rooted in who you are, not who you think you need to be, not in the mask, not in performance. So close your eyes for a moment if you can. Imagine a world where leadership sounds less like a battle cry and more like a love song, or feels less like a battle itself and more like stoking a sacred fire, where leaders are gardeners tending spaces where others can grow and thrive, and where success isn't measured in metrics but in meaning, in process, where leading means listening, and where power is not something that we wield over others in domination or conquering, but something that we awaken within each other. That world is not a fantasy. It's a frequency. It is available every time you choose resonance over reaction, creativity over conformity, soul over survival. And maybe, just maybe, the future is not built by those who shout the loudest, but by those who begin to listen the deepest. So I invite you, my beloved listener, to ask yourself today, where am I still leading from survival? And where am I ready to lead from soul? Maybe it's in the quiet ways, like in how you speak to yourself when you make a mistake, in how you create a home that feels safe, even when chaos tries to creep in how you choose patience with your children, your partner, your aging parents, leading not with control, but with compassion. Listen, I know that that is much easier said than done, and that is okay as well. When you do lead from a place of control or anger or whatever else might be happening, can you come back to gentleness with yourself first? That self leadership, and then repair with others next from the ripple of that? Or maybe it is in the bigger, more visible ways, like the way you lead a team, not by demanding results, but by cultivating trust first and foremost. In the conversations that you start at work, daring to bring more humanity into spaces that have completely forgotten it. In the art you create, the projects that you champion, the movements you ignite, not from a place of proving, but from a place of truth. Leadership lives in all of these spaces. Every choice to meet life with more soul than survival is a revolution in fractal form, a crack of light in places that have long been dark. You don't have to have all the answers yet, and you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. Willing to listen inward, willing to soften the grip on all of those old stories, willing to see yourself with new eyes, and willing to trust that your presence, not your perfection, is the medicine that you offer the world. You're already leading simply by living from your own truth. And the world is so hungry for your particular, unique kind of leadership. Before we close today, I want to share something that's personal with you. This poem emerged from my own journey, my own breaking away from survival-driven leadership, from all of the silent contracts that I didn't even know that I had signed, and into something deeper, truer, and honestly, more alive. It's about what it really means to lead yourself first, and not through force, but through remembering. Not about climbing higher, but through descending inward. And I offer it today as a reflection, something that you can lean into as you step into your own becoming. This is called the gravity of becoming. For a long time, I moved like a cog, oiled, obedient, worn to the bone by the machinery of a world that forgot how to feel. I mistook exhaustion for devotion. I mistook disappearance for belonging. But somewhere deeper, under the gears, under the silence, a tremor stirred. It was not a roar, but a remembering. a pulse older than language, older than fear. The first act of leadership was not to ascend, but to descend into the hollows of my own ribs, into the sacred caves where my voice waited in exile. I led myself through the wreckage of obedience. I led myself into the underworld of my own body. Through every corridor, they taught me to lock away. And when I stepped out of the grinding gears, out of the broken covenant of silence, they watched, narrow-eyed, wringing their hands. They called me reckless. They called me lost. They called me mad, as they always do when someone remembers their own fire. It is the oldest story, older than walls and kings. The one who leaves the cave, blinded, burning, becoming. Only this time, there was no rescuer, no chain breaker, only me choosing. Only me stepping through the flame into the terrifying, sacred air of my own becoming. Because in living my truth, I found a different kind of gravity. The kind that resonates outward, not from dominance, but from depth. A quiet leadership, rooted not in command, but in coherence. I lead by frequency, by the steady gravity of a soul unhidden, by the coherence of a heart that found its way back to itself. A resonance so alive that it shakes the walls of every false house I once called home. Thank you, truly, for being here with me today, walking this path of reflection and resonance. And if today's conversation stirred something in you, I would love to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram at iam.marrissa By the way, my name is spelled Marrissa. Rhodes is Rhodes. And you can also find me at Reverie_the collective. Or you can join me over at the Reverie Collective Journal on Substack, where the deep rivers of this work will continue to flow. You may notice that I'm beginning to share more across these spaces, threads of a larger tapestry that I am weaving. And it's all part of a conscious return, aligning everything that I offer with the truest vibration of my own soul's essence. I am building a field where the sacred, the psychological, and the symbolic meet as one. And if you feel the yes inside your body, I invite you to join me. Until we meet again, lead with your soul, love with your whole being, and, of course, let the reverie lead you.